And here is the last of the three video lectures on education for my sociology students. Okay, schooling in the United States. Now, we just finished talking about schooling in Japan, to give you some reference here from where we're picking up. We were the first country to set the goal of mass education. That is, everybody gets to go to school and is actually mandated to go to school up to a certain point in time. We have what's called free and appropriate public education in this country. By 1918, all states had passed mandatory education laws requiring all children to attend school until the age of 16 or the completion of the 8th grade. As of 2006, more than 4/5 of people had high school educations. In 2006, more than 1/4 or 25% of people had a 4-year college degree. That's very significant. No other country in the world has as large a share of adults with higher educational degrees from colleges and universities than the United States. In fact, it's starting to be argued that college degree for your generation might almost be kind of like a high school degree was for my generation. It's almost expected, and it's so common that it's almost like now you're going to have to, your generation, you're going to have to actually get maybe a master's degree or even a PhD to continue to set yourself apart from the rest. So, our educational system in this country is shaped by our high standard of living. Young people typically don't have to work. Now, in places like India, where you still have a largely agriculturally based economy, with big farms and families that need lots of kids to work the farm just to survive, kids are going to have to work. If they get to go to school, they're still going to have to work. We live in an information-based society. We're not out working on farms to survive. We don't need a lot of people. We don't need big families in this country now to ensure survival. And that's partly due to our high standard of living. Also, our democratic principles. We have a belief excuse me, that education should be available to everybody. Therefore, it is. Public versus private school. In 2007, 90% of school-aged children attended primary and secondary state-funded public schools. In 2007, 10% of school-aged children attended private schools. So private schools cost money, whereas public schools are free. They're funded by the government, our taxpayer dollars. So what you're going to find is that private schools tend to attract children who have parents with more money than parents with kids in public schools. What happens generally is we note very quickly a correlation between income and educational attainment and grades. Parents with more money tend to have children who make better grades. Is it because they're smarter? No. It's because education is emphasized more. And families with more money are able to not worry as much about other problems that take away from homework or that take away from a focus on school. Also, parents who have a lot of money, or more money than average, we'll say, are free more to be involved with their children's education. Children with poor parents, not so much. Parental involvement is not nearly as much of a factor because parents are either working several jobs trying to make ends meet, or they are just they're just not involved. Period. The biggest, write this in your notes somewhere. The biggest indicator of success in public schools for children is parental involvement. Again, parental involvement is the biggest predictor of success for children in schools. That's regardless of age, income, race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status. That's a good little thing to know there. There are also approximately 6,000 non-religious private schools that enroll mostly young people from well-to-do families. They're expensive and they're prestigious. They're also referred to as prep schools. I'm not going to inundate you with a ton of statistics about private versus public schools because we don't need to do that in an introduction class. But basically, what you're going to find, I'll scroll through the slides. You won't have to write them down, but I'll kind of scroll through and you can stop and pause and look at it if you want to. What you're going to find is that whether it's reading, spelling, math, scores Standardized scores in these areas tend to be higher for private school students as opposed to public school students. And again, is it because they're just smarter than us who are in public schools or went to public schools? No, it has a lot to do with the income, has a lot to do with the parents being involved, and a lot of these things kind of come with money as well. And the emphasis on school success is stronger in families with higher incomes as opposed to families with lower incomes often. So all these factors kind of play in. Again, we're now to a point where you don't have to know this, and I'm not really going to lecture it, but you can look at it if you want. You can pause the video if you like in places. I'm going to kind of run through these here. So.